And it's like that every time I start to record, an airplane flies over. It's like, it's a guaranteed thing that happens.
If you would quit helping them build them, then they wouldn't fly over.
I don't build them. I don't help them build them. We do the repairs.
You single-handedly destroy the environment. All of the carbon emissions from air travel are your responsibility solely.
I mean,
100%.
That's why I'm looking at a hybrid car.
I don't think that's going to help, but
I know it's not.
I think we have some better things to talk about today.
Yes, 100%.
Because after our last episode, which I called "What if this episode was good?"
It was good.
I think we have room for improvement.
I mean, we do have room for improvement for sure. I mean, I think this episode right now, as soon as we start, is going to be 100 times better. I mean, I like the last episode. Don't get me wrong. Everybody that listened to it, I'm sure they're going to be like, what are you guys talking about?
It was fantastic. It was like every pitch in the world.
It was the best.
Yeah, I even reached out. This is how bad the last episode is. I reached out to your co-author for a clip to put in the episode. Never came. Oh my God. Seriously. Wow. So my whole introduction of the podcast note says, we like to thank Michael Tanner for his cool idea. And we did a comic like this. And then there's nothing in the episode about Michael Tanner, except maybe us mentioning him at the beginning.
That's typical Michael Tanner.
Yeah. So,
and I can say that.
And a hallmark of this podcast to be spot on with our delivery.
Yes. What, right now?
And just every time, right? Like I'm like, I have this cool idea, and then we don't deliver.
I mean, we tried.
I mean, we did deliver US1 2 weeks ago. So
we did. Signed, sealed, delivered.
A delivery did happen at some point. So it was pretty fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to deliver some amazing for you in this episode because boy, do we have a treat.
It is a treat.
And we are continuing. We're back to it. I guess. I mean, did we really leave? I guess we left for 2 weeks. I think covering See You Dad counts as a drug issue.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah, definitely.
But we did leave our drug and alcohol series for a minute. But we're coming back to our drug and alcohol series with a comic that, if you like subtext,
yes,
this one's got it.
It's got it all over the place.
It's got layered subtext.
Layers. It's like a
layers and layers of subtext.
Yeah, it is. It is so many layers. It's like an onion.
And when I read this comic as a 14-year-old, I got none of the subtext.
Yeah, I think I
Zero.
I read this at 12, or not this issue that we're covering right now, but the issue right after it, and I didn't understand a thing because I hadn't read anything before it, and I didn't read anything after it. So I just read that one issue.
It's one of those books where if you are a kid, you are reading it one way, and as an adult and now knowing what was going on in the 80s with the drug war, I read this 100% different way.
Yeah. It's a different book now. And that's what we do here at Funny Book Forensics. We look at it with our adult eyes and go, that book we read as a child, totally different book.
Yeah, because if we would have talked about this you might have gotten it by high school, but I was so naive, I wouldn't have gotten it then, right? I would have been like, look what the cool space cops are doing.
Yeah, and
you would have been like, Dan, all these things mean, and dude, I would have been like, oh,
this is like a Dr. J video. And you'd have been like, I don't know what that reference means.
Well, we are finally covering the Legion of Super.
What? No, we're covering the L.E.G.I.O.N. The L.E.G.I.O.N. of 89.
The L.E.G.I.O.Ns. We're covering L.G.I.O.N. 89, a cheap attempt to get me to buy more Legion of Superheroes books in 1989, and they did. They were successful. I did indeed buy these.
You bought them all.
I bought them all.
L.E.G.I.O.N.
Yeah, this was actually, we recently finished up a series called Invasion, authored by Keith Giffen, who was hot all over DC Comics in the late 80s. He was writing Justice League with John Mark DeMatteis. He had just been back drawing Legion of Superheroes at the end of the Volume 3 run, and then was starting the 5 year later run right at this time. He's also writing L.E.G.I.O.N. 89, the only book to this point in history whose year on the title actually went up with the year. Like the title changed every year.
That's it. That's a testament.
And if it's the only thing this series is really known for, probably highlights something bad about the series. But I'm gonna be honest with you, I actually really love these books.
They're fun.
Yeah, I mean they're the Giffen Justice League in space.
Yeah,
sort of.
Yeah.
And one of the things Giffen was really good at was taking characters that didn't have a huge backstory and then giving them voice. And in this case, he creates a bunch of characters in the Invasion series and spins it off into this book, plus Lobo.
Lobo?
Who was created by Keith Giffen and Roger Silfer in Omega Men #3. So he got to pick back up one of his toys and play with it.
Yeah.
And this is honestly before the Lobo that everyone knows. So
he's not the beefcake Lobo, the hard riding Lobo that everybody's like, let's make a movie about this guy. You don't want a movie about this guy.
Well, he is, but we just don't know that yet.
You don't know that yet. You don't want a movie about this guy.
Oh, I think you do, because we're going to have a mini series about him in 1990, and it just goes on from there.
Yeah,
because then it's the early 90s, and Lobo is in every DC book every week. He's like the Wolverine of DC.
Yeah. He is. Yeah, he is 100% that.
And then they burned that out real quick, but then have been able to bring back Lobo several times. I think it was the one where he murders Santa Claus. That was my favorite issue.
Oh man,
there's some. I know you're a big Lobo fan.
I like some Lobo. I have to say though, on this the cover that we're talking about, he has this meatloaf look, and I think he would do anything for love.
He's a bat out of hell.
He would do that.
He's a bat out of hell.
He is a bat out of. Well, he's a wolf out of hell.
Well, we get, interestingly enough, it's really interesting because on this book. Well, let's talk about the cover for a second before I get into the book.
It's cool.
Because arguably, you have one of DC's most famous cover / interior artists on the cover, and one of their most famous inkers, which you've got a Kevin Maguire and Al Gordon cover, which is really interesting. Al Gordon inking Kevin Maguire is interesting. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like it. But with Al Gordon's sort of heavier inks, you get the Kevin Maguire expressive faces, but they're not quite as expressive.
Yeah.
Is that a fair assessment? Like, you've got Dox back in the background, Vril Dox, who you'll learn about in a couple minutes. He's Brainiac's son, sort of. Mm-hmm. Sort of. Brainiac. We'll call him Brainiac 2.
Brainiac 2.
And you've got a Lobo, like, running at you. And we've got Dox and Lobo, the demonic duo. And as we set up for this issue, Vril Dox and a band of misfit toys escapes the alien invasion. They escape a big jail, basically. Mm-hmm. And what happened in Invasion was each planet had to send, they didn't have to, but they could send the folks they didn't want to this big jail as sort of this tribute to be part of this alien alliance, so they'd be left alone. And so sometimes planets sent somebody who they like one of their heroes because the alien alliance demanded it, right? So sometimes that happened. And then some planets also use that as an opportunity just to get rid of annoyances. Mm-hmm. So in the case of Colu, home of Brainiac, the computer tyrants of Colu just sent Vril Dox because he was an annoyance. And in the case of Karen, the planet we'll learn about in this episode, they also sent an annoyance, and he's quite annoying. So we'll meet some of the characters here in a couple minutes. Earlier in the series, they go back to Colu. They fight the computer tyrants of Colu. The team unifies around defeating the computer tyrants, and they escape. And now they're out to create their own space cop agency. Well, at least Vril Dox, Brainiac 2. They never really call him Brainiac 2 in this series, right?
No.
But basically, he was Brainiac 2 in the Silver Age. So virtually sort of Brainiac's son.
Yeah.
But if you know the name Dox, you'll know that a famous hero that's been in cartoons and comic books named Brainiac 5 is the descendant of Vril Dox. So we got that. And Brainiac 5 was a good guy. Vril Dox, on the other hand, questionable.
Questionable. I would say on the line of what do you want to say? Like he has that moral ambiguity.
Well, we're also coming off a deal that Vril Dox has made with Lobo, because you see two of the other characters, Garen Beck and Lydia Maller, whose descendant is Shadowlass of Legion of Superheroes. Mm-hmm. She is the champion of Talok 5. See, you just wish you knew all that. That's what happens when I get a book I know a lot about.
Yes, yeah.
You get really bored because I start talking about Legion stuff.
It's educational.
Yeah, and that's one way to put it. Educational.
Educational.
It's a nice way to say boring. See,
no, I didn't say boring. I said educational.
They ran into one of Lobo's dolphin fish that live in space, and they accidentally killed one. And so Lobo was going to kill them, but Dox made a deal. So now Lobo works for him. So somehow with the 12th level intellect, you can trick Lobo into making a deal with you where he now works for you and he doesn't kill your associates after they accidentally killed one of his space dolphins.
Oh, man.
And if you're looking for a wild ride, we're only on issue 5. You can go back and read issue 1 through 4 pretty easily to see what was happening.
Oh, yeah. And I will.
And they're fun books. So anyway, we get the demonic duo, and we're going to flip from the cover with Maguire and Gordon to an equally adept art team in a second that does amazing outer space things. And we get the first page, The Secret Diary of Garen Beck.
Oh.
And Garen Beck's a fascinating character. I would say, like, his hair sort of looks like a lettuce wedge salad.
Mm-hmm. Or Guile from Street Fighter.
Or Guile from Street Fighter. Is that? Well, The Secret Diary of Garen Beck, and we get a nice big spaceship leaving a planet. And he says, I can't believe you did this, Dox. You actually contracted this maniac. He's working for us now. And Dox corrects Beck and says, working for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get some notes from Garen Beck's diary. Vril Dox has many fine qualities. Highly intelligent, leadership ability, physical fitness. I've tried hard to like him. I really have. But I just cannot understand how a guy with everything going for him can be guilty of so many downright rotten things. And then we get an introduction to our creative team. Keith Giffen on plot and breakdowns, very similar to what he did on Justice League with DeMatteis. Alan Grant, the scripter, and we'll talk about Alan Grant a little bit more in our next couple of podcasts. But Alan Grant was actually a scripter on 2000 AD, and actually did some Judge Dredd scripting before he came to the U.S. to work for DC.
Okay.
And he also had a pretty famous run on Batman with Norm Breyfogle.
Oh, wow.
So we're getting that Alan Grant. And rest his soul, he died last year, unfortunately. So we can't go get Alan Grant's signature now, which makes me sad. And then we've got Barry Kitson, who also came over from the UK. And I don't think we're going to get a lot into Barry Kitson because Barry Kitson's work is extensive. So if you don't know who Barry Kitson is, do a look up. We get Mark McKenna on inks, Lovern, Kindzierski, the colorist, can I say words today? Colorist, and Gaspar, the letterer. Just Gaspar. No names.
Gaspar.
And we also get editing. We got Art Young as assistant editor and Karen Berger as the head editor. And of course, Karen Berger went on very shortly after this to do Vertigo, to edit the entire Vertigo line.
So a long time.
We got a powerhouse crew here.
Yeah.
So if this isn't good, that's pretty bad, right?
Yeah.
And
very disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, it did okay. I don't think the sales numbers were fantastic, but it did okay.
Yeah.
So also at the time, just one more thing to set up too. The Green Lantern Corps were defunct.
Okay.
So don't ask me why, because I can't tell you right now, but I can just tell you they were defunct.
No Space Police. So they needed new Space Police.
We need new Space Police because we don't have the Space Police with the shiny rings.
Now you have Space Police without the shiny rings.
Well, we don't have them yet.
Okay.
Patience, sir. Patience.
I see.
Well, we're on to the next page, and Garen Beck is not happy.
No.
And basically, we get a nice 6-panel conversation between Beck and Dox, and got Lobo just chilling out in the background, and Beck is just protesting everything that's happened because he doesn't want Lobo to be hanging out with the quote unquote team. That's not a team. That is a team. Kind of like the Defenders.
Yeah.
In space.
Defenders in space. In space.
But, yeah. Like basically, Beck just runs away in anger because it's a losing battle, right? Dox makes a deal to keep him from getting murdered. So he's like, I got to hang out with this guy, but he's not going to murder me, at least for now.
Yeah.
So, and basically what they have to do to keep Lobo on their side is they have to keep his dolphin pack fed and safe. And as long as they do that, he can't kill Larissa or Beck. So
they're safe.
We're good. And then we get a meet the team shot. We get Beck walking in, and you've got a lineup here of Stealth, who is an alien. And man, it took me forever to figure out Stealth's powers. So let me ask you, based on what you've read so far, what are Stealth's powers?
They're stealth.
Can you get into more detail besides saying her name?
They do stealth things.
So you don't know her powers?
I didn't pick up on anything in the 2 books.
I didn't pick up on anything in the 2 books. In fact, I would tell you I didn't pick up on anything for several issues. I think it took me a good year before I figured out what Stealth's powers were.
Gotcha.
But you are right. She basically can manipulate fields.
So she's stealth.
Right. I mean, her name is her power, sort of, but I don't know. It's a hard comic book power, I think.
That's pretty tricky.
We're also going to find out a lot about her. Admittedly, it took me like a year to figure out what Domino's powers were in X-Force too.
I see. Well, that's
Did you know
easy.
what they were when you were reading those early issues?
Yeah. Domino can predictive. She's
lucky.
Yeah, lucky. She knows what not to do based off of things that are happening. So it's predicted.
I dare you to go back and read those issues and tell me that was actually explained.
It wasn't. I'm just smart.
I see. Yeah, I'm not, because I can't figure out. If you don't tell me exactly what the powers are, I'm a little confused. We also meet Larissa Mailer, the champion of Talok 5, who has shadow casting powers, which I don't think are used in the entire 2 issues.
No.
Okay. We have a Durlin, who is unnamed. He's just wearing a big purple robe and often has a big green thing sticking out of his thing.
Yes. The mob.
If you're a Legion fan, the purple robes are reminiscent of the Time Dropper, which is a little bit weird. And then we've got Strata, who is a big dryad, basically the ancestor of Block in the Legion of Superheroes.
Mm-hmm. And
so we've got that going on. And basically, we get another page of Beck whining at anybody who will listen.
Yes.
Is that a fair assessment of this page?
Beck just whines, runs away, whines some more.
He kind of whines a lot.
The book is whining.
Yeah, he's just like... And he wants the team to put a distance between the manipulative creep, which is Vril Dox, as much as they can.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get to the next page, and Strata steps in and says, Vril's got Lobo, we can't just let those 2 run amok. So we've decided to stick around for the time being, at least. And Strata also has, it looks like a big chunk has been removed, but there's nice shiny rock underneath.
Yeah.
Hence the name Strata, maybe?
Yeah.
Yeah. But we don't really know that yet because we're just getting started.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just get more and more Garen Beck getting upset.
Mm-hmm. Just being
until
sad.
He leaves.
Yeah, just being a sad boy.
And, they get Strata oftentimes as comic relief. You just get, he storms away and Strata he thinks he's got problems. My skin's peeling off like plaster.
See, he's molting.
Yeah. And they are molting.
They are molting.
And we've got Larissa just making fun of Beck too. So just pretty much the entire team is tired of this guy too.
Yeah.
So he goes off and sulks some more and writes in his diary.
Yeah. Which says, I was going to say, the panel, all those panels, that whole page is really pretty. And it's really reflective of his inner sadness.
Well, now we're going to get some Beck inner sadness. How should we read this? Like a forlorn teenager? I'm thinking, I'm not sure.
If you want
Sometimes I think I'm trapped in a nightmare. Every time I think I know what's going on, every time I seem able to exert a little control in my own life, The ground gets pulled away from under my feet. I'm no hero. So why does Docs insist on keeping me around? Why does he thwart me at every turn, manipulate everything so I can't break away? I guess I should feel flattered. Nah, I might as well face it. My life is out of my control. Oh well, as nightmares go, I suppose it could be worse. The others aren't too hard to get along with, and Larissa's nice. And at least we're traveling. I mean, I could still be stuck at home on Karen. Did you go to sleep?
No. I was just like thinking to myself, he's so sad.
he's like, he has a book of terrible teenage poetry.
Yeah, I mean, he's emo. He's very emo.
With a giant, but his hair is not emo, that's for sure.
Oh, well, I mean, it could be. We just don't know. Maybe on his.
Well, at the end of the page, he sees a planet and yells, "Oh my grok," which I guess you can't say "Oh my god," so that's what they say.
Oh my grok.
There's a lot of grok that shows up in these books.
Oh yeah.
Well, we don't get to know what exactly has happened because now we get a conversation between the Durlin and Docs. And these two have an interesting history if you go back and read the book. So I won't get too far into it, but the Durlin was sort of, for a while, Docs's conscience.
Okay.
And you can see that interaction here. And again, these pages are crazy good.
Oh, yeah. They're really pretty.
That's like, even if the plot of the book is terrible, you can just keep saying these pages are amazingly pretty.
They are.
And I think Kitson does an amazing job with faces.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I do think the Kitson and Maguire art is somewhat similar, though not the same. Though I think Kitson stops doing more Maguire-esque stuff later as he gets settled into his art. Mm-hmm. But I love how in the different panels you can see Docs go from thinking about his conscience to smirking, knowing he's going to ignore it.
Yeah.
And with the last panel, the Durlin says, "At least he hasn't realized our destination yet," referring to Beck. "You still intend to go through with this, I take it." And Doc just smirks and says, "You take it correctly, old friend. I most certainly do." And so we'll soon get to find out what nefarious plans Docs has. Except, of course, Beck is whining again. He's screaming, "Karen! He's taking us to Karen! The bastard's taking us to Karen!" And he's bitching to Larissa instead of to Docs. And Larissa's just like, "I don't know what he's doing."
Yeah. Why does it matter?
And then we get a new suit on. We see the suit that he was wearing. Like, he's totally changed from his blue jumpsuit to it's like a hand kind of thing.
Yeah.
On his chest with a shiny orb in the middle.
Yeah.
And he just tells Beck he's going to his destiny, my destiny, our destiny. But he always says, note he says my destiny first.
Yes, my destiny, our destiny.
I mean, we're sharing it, right? Like it's shared between both of us, but it's like this podcast choice, this issue choice was our choice, right?
Yes, definitely our choice. You chose for both of us a book that you wanted to cover.
Right. See, I've got some Vril Docs in me.
Yes.
I think it's fair. I think you have a little Vril Docs in you, though, too.
A little.
Or maybe a little Lobo.
I mean, probably some Lobo. I apologize if you can hear the fire trucks, but there's a fire on 167 or something.
Well, I don't hear, like, you always point out sounds that we can't necessarily hear.
Yeah. No, I can see the smoke from here.
Well, what's going on here on this world here? So we get like a Wikipedia entry of the world with some really pretty art.
Yes. It's a nice little Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, I mean, on Karen is a drug world, it says an estimated 78% of all illegal substances distributed through this and neighboring 5-star systems are grown here, processed here, or controlled from here. Technologically, it's unremarkable because they just pursue drugs, basically. And the dominant humanoids are distinguishable solely for only one fact. They have the highest addiction rate of any known world, approaching 100% in several areas. And we find out that the head drug lord of this world is named Canis Biz.
Oh, no! What?
What could they be referring to here?
I don't know. It sounds very much like a play on words, Dan.
Well, Doc says Karen is a disease, and we are going to administer the cure. All right. So, was there a country in South America that was notorious for the cocaine trade?
I do believe so. I do believe so.
Colombia, perhaps?
Probably.
Was there not a lot of rhetoric like this directed toward their government?
Probably.
I mean, you could go watch all the Pablo Escobar stuff on Netflix, right?
Yes.
So, yeah, there's some subtext here. I can tell you when I was reading this as a 14-year-old, I was just like, oh, well, they're picking this world because it's a drug world and drugs are bad.
Yes. Oh, just a drug. Yeah, yeah.
And so they're going to take out this guy. And I definitely didn't know what Canis Biz referred to.
As soon as I read it, I started laughing. And then you see him smoking something.
He doesn't look like a happy man.
No. But then again, maybe he is a happy man because he's smoking something.
I do like how all their fields, though. I mean, there is some subtext here, right? There definitely were, food crops and things like that in countries that were selling drugs, primarily to customers in the United States, right? Mm-hmm. Where food crops were substituted for, say, coca crops or marijuana at times. And yeah, there's a lot of subtext here. The one thing if I'm going to critique this, I will say I didn't like the fact that they said, well, they have the highest addiction rate of any country known in the world, because, as we learned about the drug war more, right, the addiction rates were in the countries that could afford to purchase them, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it was far less addiction rates in the countries that were producing. So, but maybe it's the ecosystem too, like they produce and then sell to the people that can afford it on the planet and then export it.
Or maybe they keep their planet high all the time to keep them working.
And passive, yeah. Well, it looked like they had robots out there working, so they have to keep folks high on something, I guess. Occupy their time.
It could be a situation in which, there's a huge strike or something like that, and the only way to make everybody's life better is to get a little integrity, and then they're
a little integrity,
and then the whole town is just a little tilted, if you will, and then just things change, and
Well, and Docs is
you're not even biting.
Yeah, I'm not biting.
You're not biting. It fits though. It fits because it's cannabis.
But I think we get Docs has got Garen Beck reined in here because Garen's like, man, I have to hand it to Docs. He gets his facts straight and right to the point, and his heart's in the right place. So we find out Garen is a hardcore Reaganite.
Karen or Docs?
Garen Beck.
Oh, Garen. Yeah, maybe so. Yeah.
And not Karen. Karen's a whole different. Karen's Colombia, right? I mean,
yeah.
So basically, we get Docs explaining the idea is to give the police a massive morale boost. He's by giving them one huge drug bust.
Yeah.
So we've got a warlord who's supplanted the government, and he's going to go down there and basically pump up the government so they can beat the warlord. Does this sound familiar in history at all?
A little bit.
Well, anyway, he introduces his plan, and like every nefarious supervillain, you get Stealth saying, still, it's going to be just us against a planet-wide organization. And Larissa says, I'm sure that won't phase Vril. How precisely do you propose we begin? And he's like, I've already begun. And so the team's like, what? You've done what? So in classic Vril Docs fashion, he doesn't really consult the team. He just starts something.
Yes.
And immediately the team flies off to the planet. So we've got Beck, Strata, Larissa, and Stealth.
Because Lobo's already there.
Yeah. And then we get some really interesting things. And I always love the interplay between Stealth and Larissa, because you get in the middle of the page. Larissa's like, from what I understand of the conditions down there, the execution of this Canis Biz would be on the par of murdering a head of state on any other world. And Stealth's like, so what? Biz is still no more than a low-life hoodlum. And Larissa's like, that's not the issue here, Stealth. Is Talok's shadow champion. I have some experience in these things. The planet's social and political structure must be taken into account. You can't just go executing. And she gets cut off. you're getting to be a real drag. That you are. Anyway, the group conscious. And I think this is you get this, it's a comic book, but there's also a lot of subtext here because the US, right, in working with other governments would often prop up the presumed head of state, right? No matter how bad they were.
Right.
And especially in Latin America, we would prop up heads of state that weren't communist, quote unquote, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so
in hopes that things would go the way that they wanted. And then when they didn't, well, then a regime change was needed. And sometimes things would work out and sometimes things would go the way they did.
And maybe guns would just show up for the people that wanted to do the regime change.
Yeah.
Emphasizing as long as they weren't communists, right? They could never be communists because that's a no-go.
Yeah.
Well, we find out Karen's in an open world, and that's what Beckett says, and nobody in their right mind would attack it. So we're off, and we get the master planner here, Doc's talking to the Durlin. He's like, there they go. And the Durlin's like, just as you knew they would, by my mother's tendrils, you're a sly one, Vril. I'm just wondering on Durla, since they're all shape changers, do they have moms and dads?
I don't know. It's a good question.
It would be interesting, right? Like, it'd probably just be mates, perhaps.
Yeah. Just they shake things and make another.
Well, the interesting thing is Docs puts phase 2 of the plan in place. He's going down to take over the Karen Police Department, the police force, not the police department, I guess, the whole planetary police force.
Yeah.
That is as corrupt as Canis Biz, right?
Right.
So, okay. And he's bringing Lobo down with him, and Lobo's pretty excited to get started murdering people because he's good at that. So now we're headed down, and we're back to Beck whining. Karen home, I thought I'd never see it again. I hoped I'd never see it again. But here I am, and there it is. And it's all thanks to Vril Bloody Docs. He's like, what would you compare him to in popular culture?
Daria.
Daria. Yeah. Reaching back there.
I mean, Daria's pretty, I mean, yeah, reaching back, but I mean, Daria's come full circle again. Kids like Daria.
That's fair.
Yeah. Daria's
again. They wonder how they're going to get into Canis Biz's estate, and Beck's like, oh, we can get in because I'm here. Yeah. He's like, what?
What? Huh? Don't worry.
And we get to the next page, and we get a reveal. Garen walks down the plank there, or I don't know, what are those things called? Yeah, you make planes.
It's the
ramp.
Yeah, the ramp.
Steps.
The gantry.
And Canis Biz walks up and goes, Garen Beck, old wedgehead. And somehow by giving him a giant hug, his head, actually, the hair goes down a little bit.
Yeah.
And we find out that Garen Beck is in some way Canis Biz's son. What? Dun, dun, dun.
Son? No.
Well, and then we get to the next page, and Beck says, oh, well, at least we got here before Lobo. Wonder what happened to him. And, well, what happened is Lobo's been unleashed upon the police force, and he's murdering a whole bunch of them.
Yes, he's just beating the crap out of them all. He is going berserker.
Yeah, and there's lots of blood and a whole pile of them on Lobo, and he's beating up, and then the rest of the police are like, "Oh my god, that guy ain't normal."
Yeah, no, I don't get paid. And for people that obviously can't see this, they look like Spaceballs, like the characters from Spaceballs, except for they're wearing like purple outfits. And when I just reading this, I'm just like, oh my gosh. Asshole.
Yeah.
Asshole.
I'm also just going to I'll just say it now because I don't think there was anything meant by this, but I am not super comfortable with the upside down pink triangles they're all wearing either.
Fair enough.
Because I don't like it when almost Nazi symbols slide into the book.
Yeah.
That meant a very different thing.
Right.
But yeah. And maybe there's more subtext here because this is the book of subtext beyond subtext. So... Yeah. But we do get basically everybody surrenders to Lobo, which means they surrender to Docs.
Yeah.
And Lobo's just sitting on a pile of dead bodies. And Docs looks up and goes, done? Good work. And he's like, I was only warming up. man, who's next? And the Docs is like, from the lackluster performance of the lot, I'd say the current police chief isn't too highly thought of. Probably best we retire him and take over ourselves. So they've now Docs has a police force.
Yeah. Regime change.
And he does say, we'll change all that, of course, one city at a time until this whole world is drug free. So he is going to eradicate drugs from the planet. Country. I said country, from the planet. And again, it's
a changer.
So we're on page 17 because this book has page numbers.
Yes, it does. Unlike other books we've read in the past.
Unlike other books we've read
that don't have page numbers. I was told you're never going to get those page numbers.
In fact, the page numbers could be changed when it was put in graphic novel form.
Oh, well, you're not going to get them.
Well, tell me, where are you at so far? So we're on page 17. Whose side are you on? Are you on Canis Biz's side? Or are you on Beck's side? Or are you on Docs' side?
I'm on Docs' side, of course.
Because we're eradicating all drugs?
Well, because he's just badass.
Didn't he just have Lobo murder like 30 people?
But that's what Lobo does.
Right. That doesn't make it okay.
I mean, moral ambiguity. Moral ambiguity.
Or there's lots of morals here because subtext. Dan's word of the day.
Yes. All right. Let's keep this show rolling. We're at 40
minutes. We flip a page and we're having a big party at the Canis Biz estate.
Big party.
And everybody's eating. There's a big, giant turkey with it looks like the turkey from John Madden.
That's the big
Thanksgiving games.
Yeah, it's got a lot of feet on it, a lot of legs,
6 drumsticks.
That's a weird turkey.
Canis Biz is yelling out, eat, drink, snort, smoke, be merry, for tomorrow you can do it all again. Ain't that what the philosophers say, Garen? And Garen's like, I guess. Listen, about this Lobo, I mean, we're not talking your average hired assassin here. You should hear what his name means. I don't think I'm on Garen Beck's side ever.
No, me neither. He's kind of a, he's just sad boy.
Yeah, and Larissa is frustrated because she's trying to prevent the murder of a head of state, but her brain is coming to grips with the excesses and the terrible split in the population.
Right.
And the rich is here, and then we've got the rest of the population below, who all seemingly work for the police.
Right.
Well, anyway, we get some folks going down here. We get one dude at the bottom with glasses on.
Mm-hmm.
He said, they ask him for some more wine, Mr. Cool, and he says, nah, it's bad for the kidneys. Bring me some crushed ice and a syringe.
Wow.
Jeez. Whew. All right. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, Biz is acting all tough. Lobo, Schmobo, you don't have to worry about him. Canis Biz can look after himself. And he says, no more to be said. Come on, son, eat up. And of course, Larissa's hating this.
Yeah.
And so we get some typical gangster stuff. And Canis has his own bodyguard named Knuckles. And they he sends the crew off to bed.
See you tomorrow.
But he leaves them together. And Larissa is angry. She says, let me see if I've got this straight. When you were on the force, you were here, wanted to bust Biz, but you couldn't get close enough to get evidence you needed. So I married his daughter. Are you satisfied? So now we see why Garen Beck got sent off to the space prison.
Aha.
Because apparently Canis Biz is a lot smarter than Garen Beck, which should not be a surprise.
Got it.
And Stealth's making fun of him because obviously he didn't bust him. And Beck's like, I tried, Stealth. Believe me, I tried, but nobody paid any attention. They all thought it was some great joke, even Biz. I can't imagine why they thought it was a great joke, Greg.
I don't know either. Because he's just...
Do you think he just walked around in trying to capture him, just walked around the estate, whining?
Hey, Biz, I want to arrest you, but I don't have any evidence yet. Soon, though. Soon. Sure thing.
No bother.
And he's like, sure thing, Beck.
Well, their next steps are to wait for Lobo and stop him from murdering Canis Biz. So, hey, we get a flashback, though. So while Beck whines about his dirty little secret being out, We find out that the one dude in the last picture is an inspector, and he was actually trying to stop Canis Biz. We find out that there are some good police.
Interesting.
And then we get back to Docs, and we've got a situation because it looks like Lobo ate the head of the police chief.
It does look like that.
Or he just cut it off.
Yeah, he might have just done that. It's gone.
Yeah, because Docs tells him to go find the head and get the body out of there. And he asks Docs if he can have a badge.
Can I get a badge?
And Docs just responds, "Now, Lobo, I think it may have rolled under the console." So that's where we're at with those two.
Mm-hmm.
And then we've got the Durlin who's sitting in space. And basically, Docs is just reporting back in. Everything's going to plan. He's going to give the troops a pep talk. And the Durlin's like, well, what about the rest of the team? And Docs just tells him he worries too much. And the Durlin's like, actually, I worry too little. But I think that's due for a change.
Right.
And then we get the last scene in the book. And we get Docs talking to Lobo as he's ready to go out there to rally the troops, literally. And it looks like Docs has a small army. He says, "Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a lifetime of planned purpose. I take it all of you have heard of Canis Biz's estate." And we get next issue, getting down to, say it, Greg.
Business.
And man, are we ready for another issue or what? So,
oh yeah.
Tell me what your thoughts are of this thing so far.
I mean, like, when reading it, like, if I read this when I was younger, I would have missed a lot of stuff. Reading it now, definitely, wow, a lot of subtext, a lot of interesting stuff. I can really appreciate the art that's in it. I think I would have appreciated it when I was younger, but definitely, like, now I'm like, wow, this is really good. I love the panel layouts, and I like the way that certain things are used. Definitely, like in the diary aspect and stuff like that, and all of that. It's very neat lettering choices and other things. So I find a lot of those aspects are really cool, along with the play and the art and the coloring and stuff like that. It just makes it a very enjoyable book. And the story, I mean, with all the subtext and everything like that, and the layers, it's very, like, after reading it a couple times, it is definitely like you pick up on more stuff as you go through it.
Yeah, if I was going to give a criticism of the book, it would be that it feels like in some ways Giffen's just repeating the formula.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all these characters that have superpowers, but it's not a book about using the superpowers.
Right.
It's just Justice League in space.
Oh, yeah.
But I do like it, and I'm with you. The colors to me are what really make it stand out as a different book, right? It sets a different scene. It's very clear this is not Earth. I think that also the purples and the yellows and the pinks tell us that there is some moral ambiguity, right? Mm-hmm. If good guys are primary colors and bad guys are dark colors, then this mix of the purple, which is a monarchical color, right? And sometimes bad guys and lots of bad guys in comics are purple, right?
Uh-huh.
We get these mix of purples and yellows to sort of illustrate the moral ambiguity of the book.
Mm-hmm.
And definitely, of course, the police are purple with the pink triangles, right?
Yeah.
So definitely cool with the colors, and yeah, it's interesting. So what do you think is going to happen next?
I think they're going to get down to business.
You think business?
Business.
Well, go ahead and tell the folks what you have to plug here, because there's something important coming up.
Coming up is a Starlight issue 6 is dropping on Kickstarter not too long from now. So we'll be posting updates on our Starlight Facebook, Instagram, and other social media pages. So jump on those to follow along with us and find out when and where on Kickstarter you can go and back and pledge for the new book, the new issue, and pick up all the other issues along with the next issue.
And if you listen to our Starlight review, I highly recommend Starlight as well. So give it a shot and make sure you send all of your complaints about any bad parts of the story that you don't like, because people get, happens to them, and Greg doesn't prevent it. And he just goes right along with the writing team and writes it in the dialogue and stuff. And so if you don't like things, you can send those. Don't bother sending it to Travis Webb. Just send it straight to Greg.
Just send it straight to me, and then I'll just ignore it. No, I'll take it into consideration.
Yeah, and I don't have a lot to plug this week. We're not going to any cool Comic Cons.
No.
For the next couple months, and we aren't doing anything cool except helping Greg promote Starlight. So
I was going to say,
what's up. Get out there, read Starlight, and you could always drop by the Retro Emporium in Kent, Washington on Meeker Street if you want to relive your childhood. And if you're there on the weekends, you'll probably meet Greg or Squatcho Man.
One or the other. One of us is there.
So we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, but hopefully you grab this one and read it. These are fun books, and I would honestly suggest just reading issue 1 through 4 if you'd grab this one, because it's not a lot to read, but it will give you context. And literally this series is starting from scratch, so it will give you all the context you need.
Read them all.
And with that, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So I think, Greg, take us out of here in the way you always do, the best way possible.
Well, I mean, I didn't start recording this, so I don't know how to record. I don't know how to stop it.
Yeah. So again, you're taking us out in your classic Greg way. Just not really ending the podcast, but it just goes on forever. So